Well, Marty, here we are at the end of 2023.
Yay, we made it another year.
Another year, 15 years starting on our 16th. That counting thing always gets a little bit weird, but it was real quiet. I think we had one member involved case in the middle of the summer, and I thought, wow, we're going to come up with a year where we just have
one case.
One case. I mean, we had that, and I believe it was 2010 and 2012, perhaps. Correct me if I'm wrong. You'll have to read the article if you want to get the numbers right. Apparently, where nothing happened, but then towards the end of the year, things heated up a little bit. We had a member involved in a shooting in November, and then just a week ago, we had a member charged with aggravated assault that we've hired an attorney to help. And of course, as our readers and members know, we don't talk in terms of specifics, locations, details that could track back to the individual, because obviously we don't want to make their position worse, and we certainly don't want to excite a civil suit where nothing is merited and so on. But it's a good chance for us, Marty, to talk about getting emergency help, if you will, right in the moments of post-incident survival.
Yes.
Very important things that we've found in terms of even sometimes not getting charges forwarded at all, or getting charges dismissed pretty dang quick, is getting that lawyer working on your behalf, and that falls to you. Certainly, I talk with members when they call in, and staff talks with members when they call in, but you are the next person that they talk to, because we say, Marty, please talk to this person and find out what their needs are. So Marty, tell us a little bit about what you do on behalf of a member when he or she calls to say that I've used force in self-defense and I need some legal help.
I'll use the old attorney line. It depends. Every case is different. The idea that we have a cookie cutter approach to helping members is not true. There's a reason why we have the immediate call emergency number to call, and that is to typically get me on the phone. If I'm not available, then the phone will ring to our Chief Operating Officer, Gila, and she will pick it up, and we'll go from there. It's important to know that when you call in, you're not going to a call center or a member of the staff who you're going to have to explain what's going on, and then sometime later get a call back. It's going to go to a principal of the network, and we are going to do our very best to figure out how to best help you. Sometimes that means telling you not to tell us any more details other than it was an act of self-defense, and we're going to start working on getting you an attorney if you don't have one. And that's going to be a big part of this little discussion of me, or by me, I should say, is because you really need to figure out who your attorney is going to be. Your after self-defense plan should include an attorney to call, or at least a name and phone number that we could call and get that representation going. You might not be in a position to call immediately. In fact, I'm going to segue just a little bit here. We just had an incident involved a few days ago, and the lady was involved in an incident where she had to draw and tell people to leave her house. And this was unfortunately in one of those very, very strong anti-gun states, and even a much stronger anti-gun city, where they have prosecutors and, dare I say, judges who really don't like guns. And this happened on I believe it was a Thursday evening. And she told the police, said, well, if you're going to arrest me, I need to get this card. And she said of her attorney. Well, the card was the emergency phone line to us, and the police wouldn't let her. They said, nope, we're not going to do it. You're going out to the car. And they hustled her off to the patrol car. And then, as far as I understand it, they came back in and searched the house incident to an arrest concept. But I don't know all the details yet. I'll get the discovery, the police reports, etc., and be able to figure out what exactly happened. But anyway, she couldn't call me Thursday night. She ended up waiting until Friday. Well, first of all, she was arrested, booked, and then released. This city has a no bail required situation where she was able to go back home, which is kind of cool. She didn't have to raise bail, although I don't think it's a real solid public policy. But in this case, it worked out well for our member. I talked with her on Sunday, explained what we would be doing, and then Monday morning, I got to work finding an attorney. In this situation, we had 5 attorneys listed, and I gave a phone call. In fact, the reason I called this attorney was he had given his personal cell phone number for me only to use. I said, well, okay, he's really into this, so we called him up, and I got a voicemail. I left him a message saying, listen, we've got some urgency on this matter. We've got a person who has been arrested. She's not in jail, but she needs to get her act together for a court appearance. And so if you could call me back as soon as possible, then I really would appreciate it. Well, so I sat twiddling my thumbs for a couple hours, and I said, nope, I'm not going to wait any longer. So I looked at the next one that I wanted to call. And fortunately, I got right through to him. He had also left his personal number, and I explained the situation to him. I then called our member back and says, this guy is going to be calling you. He is the one that I think would probably best work for you under these circumstances. And so he called, and they talked back and forth. And then I called the attorney back, and I said, well, what do you think? He says, absolutely, a case of self-defense, no problem. I said, okay, then let's talk about what we need to do to get you representing our member. At which time, then he says, well, I'll call the member back and make sure that she wants to retain us, and we'll draw up a fee agreement that specifies that ACLDN is paying the tab. And so that's what happened. And by the end of that day, we had a signed, sealed, and delivered fee agreement with representation, what I believe is a very good criminal defense attorney, with another attorney for backup, and that's great. And so that's how that particular incident played out. I'm reminded of the John Dobb case, which you could actually read about in the journal, where John called me and says, I've been involved in a shooting, and the police are here right now, and I don't have an attorney. What do you want to do? What should I do? And I says, let me call you back. And so I spent the next few minutes finding an attorney in his state and in his city. And within a few more minutes, after I had talked with the attorney talked with John, and within an hour from the time I received the call, the attorney was on the front porch giving an interview to the local TV station. That worked out pretty darn good. Another one, in fact, one of the recent ones, was involved with a self-defense shooting, and I ended up getting a call on the emergency line again from the guy's daughter. She knew what was going on. She had helped him kind of prepare the legal aftermath concepts. And she knew who to call, what to do. I talked to her and told her that I'd get on the horn to find an attorney. We found an attorney pretty quickly from our attorney list. She had hooked up with the attorney, and the attorney was able to talk with the client, and then the attorney was able to talk with the police. And this gentleman was not arrested. He had legal representation, and that he was told basically by the time the investigation was concluded that it's unlikely that there will be any charges pressed. You can go home, sir. And that was a perfect situation there. And that's usually what happens when we get involved. And so, does that answer your question?
Well, we may have wandered. I think it brings up a couple of important choices. One, a couple of important points. One, you've talked about that interaction with the member, which is very limited on our part, getting that attorney engaged with the member, but then you've also talked about going back to the member and saying, is this the attorney you want representing you? When I think back over 15 years, I can think of one time where, for whatever reasons, and it's completely up to the member, that he said, no, I actually really don't want this attorney, and you said, well, fine, then tell me who you would like. And in that situation, I believe that he hired an attorney off of Main Street that flat-feed him and let him out. But
Yeah, I remember that.
I always felt kind of bad about that. But it was absolutely that member's choice, just as you described with the two recent situations. That you get back with that member and you say, is this the person you want representing them? When they say in the affirmative, then you're back in touch with an attorney, saying, well, what is our fee structure like? And at that point, I also think that it bears mentioning something that our attorney Penny Dean mentioned. You were never trying to reduce her fees. That if anything, you were saying, what needs to be done here? What expert do you need? And I think that that's something that the attorneys really value, that unlike a case manager or something of that nature, you're not going back and saying, well, I understand that you generally bill at $500 an hour, but if you want to do this work for us, you're going to bill at $300 an hour. Have you ever done that with an attorney?
No.
To my knowledge, you haven't either. So I think that's interesting. You also mentioned that really there was no cookie cutter response, and I think that also speaks to what the strength is, because, well, I've got to say, every member involved case, and there's been 32 now since we opened in 2008, every one of them has been different. Very small number of them, there's been a firearm discharge. Other times there have been fatality shootings. There have been physical defenses. There's been dogs involved where the member used a gun against an attacking dog. And there's been a lot of defensive display. Of course, those aren't charged as defensive display, but that's what we call them in the from the gun rights side, where people just put their hand on their holstered gun, or maybe they draw it a low ready, and they say, "Go away! Don't hurt us." And yet,
And if you're in a anti-gun jurisdiction, like one of our last members were, that'll get you arrested for aggravated assault.
yeah.
Yeah, because in fact, it was interesting. I talked with the attorney afterwards. He says the police get a bounty for all of the guns they take off the street. Oh boy.
Or apparently out of citizens' homes, because that one didn't even happen in the street.
Yeah, you're right.
That's really chilling. But I think that it goes to show we take shooting training, and we do shoot, don't shoot exercises, and we do role play. And I think we get that idea in our head that, well, and I mean, certainly it is true. If you shoot at someone, shoot someone. If you take someone's life, that's very, very serious. But we tend to then downplay, almost as if we're prioritizing how serious a self-defense situation could be. And frankly, some of our most expensive cases have dealt with merely physical, hand-to-hand, pepper spray. The times where life had to be taken in defense of a member have been some of the least expensive. And I think that the facts get so clear at that point, that what was this poor individual to do, that the attorneys aren't having to work as hard as they are for the pepper spray defenses or for the physical skills defenses. Any thoughts on that?
It is much harder to take a case to court where you've got witnesses piling up to testify against the member than it is when there are no witnesses and the only other person involved is dead. It's a different set of circumstances, but if the guy that you have pointed your gun at and told him to get out of your face or whatever you told him, if he's got any friends around, they'll get together and kind of draw up a story. And at that point, then you've got a little bit of a problem, because the police take all statements and they don't know who's lying, who's telling the truth. And so we end up having to perhaps go to court on that one. Although we haven't gone to court on any of them, which is really pretty amazing. 30 some instances and nobody's ever gone to court. There's been a couple people that have taken plea bargains as opposed to facing going to court, but that's their choice. I mean,
it's entirely voluntary. We've never promoted it one way or the other. That's between them and their attorney.
There was a case years ago that I did as an expert witness, and one of the attorney involved called me and said, "Marty, I've got this situation here. Can you take a look at it?" And so I did, and it was a shooting case where a big guy was coming towards a smaller woman, and she shot him through the hip, I guess, and he went to the hospital and got sewn up, and the police charged her with attempted murder because he said one thing and she said another. And so under this circumstances, I looked at it and I wrote a report explaining how clearly a case of disparity of force, and if she hadn't have shot, there's a very good chance she would have been disarmed and or killed with the gun, or at least severely injured by his hands. And that was going to be the defense, and I felt pretty confident that that was going to work. A few months later, I'm talking with the attorney, and he says, "Marty, I got some bad news for you. She pled guilty to attempted manslaughter or some type of assault." And I said, "Don't feel bad, Royce. It's what, we don't know what was in her mind. We don't know all the circumstances. All we know is what we were told by the police and what she told later in an interview. But she decided to plea bargain as opposed to take it to court, and that was the end of it. And I don't feel bad about her being found guilty of a crime because I don't know what was in her mind. We weren't there.
Well, and to emphasize, that wasn't a member-involved case, but I think the other thing, particularly in the expert witness field, is you don't know what other things are in the background. You don't know what other things might show up on the toxicology screen, on other things that are hanging out there that the person has to be concerned about. Fortunately, we're blessed with really conservative, well-educated members that certainly is not as great of a concern. And I've many times thought that our affiliated attorneys, about 525 to 550, fluctuates, of course, with people retiring, unfortunately, people passing away, people sometimes getting appointed to the bench, which I always, I hate to lose the guy or gal. I think, hey, one of us gets to sit in the judge's chair for once.
Just think how good that guy will be if he gets a self-defense case in front of him.
Well, exactly. And so, thinking about those attorneys, I also sometimes think that they must feel like the client group we bring to them, because we're also suggesting to members, hey, if you've got a will that you need written and this person does that kind of law, or if you're in a traffic dispute or something that's not self-defense related, keep the business in the family. Lawyers have to pay their mortgages too, and so they would have contact with our members that weren't always involved in self-defense. And yet here's this little teeny tiny 15 years, 32 cases. That's not a lot of work to spread around 550 people. No. and so they're probably hearing from our members either in, hey, I'd just like to know who you are and that I'm comfortable putting your name on my to-call list. Or people saying, hey, they wrote me for speeding and I really need somebody to help me go to the hearing. You have any thoughts about our members' interactions with our affiliated attorneys? Because we really treasure those affiliated attorneys. They are worth a lot to us.
I got a call just the other day from a member who wanted to basically complain about one of our network affiliated attorneys. And he had a valid complaint. He called up the attorney in his small state, very small state, and talked to the attorney, and the attorney says, hey, listen, I don't practice in your county. And he was pretty distraught about that whole concept, our member was. And so he called me to complain about it. I said, well, every attorney's got his own business. And I told him, go find another attorney. We didn't have another attorney in a specific area, but do me a favor, go find one. Open some attorney office doors and says, hi, I would like to talk with an attorney if I may. And you may do that 10 or 12 times before you get one that says, I'm not doing anything right now, come on in. And you talk to them and you tell them what's going on, and you decide this guy's a pretty good dude, or this gal. And so you found your attorney. Then what you need to do is to call me back and say, hey, I found this great attorney. Sat down, had lunch with them or had a big conversation with them, and can you put in my record that this is my attorney of record? And we've got these records, that members, we can just punch your name in the computer and come up, and if you have entered an attorney of record with us, then we know exactly who to call and the number, etc. But then we'll also follow up to try to get this person added to our network affiliated attorney list so others could take advantage of that. So that would be a perfect world, and that's what people should do.
We have a web form for logged in members where they can submit that information to us, so they can even do it at 2 a.m. if that's when they're awake. And yes, that is how we build up that resource, because those affiliated attorneys are a big resource. And sometimes you'll run into an attorney. I've been in classes where there were lawyers who were fellow students. We stood on the line and admired each other's shooting prowess, or commiserated when things didn't go so well. And maybe you go to a gun rally and someone speaks. You go up afterwards and say, hey, my name's John Smith, and I really liked your understanding of these matters. Do you have a business card? But I think it calls for us to be involved in our armed citizen community. It means going to classes. Mm-hmm. It means being involved with the other students there, getting out of your comfort zone maybe a little bit, going to that gun rally, but staying afterwards to talk to the lawyer who spoke. Like you said, they're out there, and that's kind of a self-selecting aspect of it. Yes, go ahead.
You've chosen the option to go armed in our society. You have spent countless hours reading gun magazines about ballistics and guns and all this stuff. You've watched video after video on YouTube about gun stuff, and you won't take a half an hour to go find an attorney? Come on. If nothing else, every county in this state or in this country pretty much has a local county bar association. Call them up and say, listen, I'm looking for attorneys, and this is what I want. I carry a gun. I'd like an attorney that understands self-defense law. Can you give me a recommendation? And I know in my county, they'll start listing a bunch of names because pretty much everybody here carries a gun, But anyway, you unfortunately probably won't be that lucky, but you might get a name or two. And then when you call them up, you say, listen, I was referred to you by the local county bar association as an attorney who might have experience and be willing to handle self-defense cases. They'll say, well, yeah, that's me. And it says, well, yeah, I don't have a case yet, and hopefully I never will. But I also know that if I'm involved in an incident, then I need to have an attorney that I can call. And are you that attorney that I can call? And if so, can you give me your phone number, your after-hours contact number? I will not call you unless it's a case of self-defense, etc. And so I think you're probably going to get about a 70 or 80% positive response to that. And if you don't get a good positive response, then well, I really appreciate the time you spent with me, Mr. Mitchell. And if I need it, I'll give you a call at the office the next day, or whatever. And then, of course, you go on and find another attorney that will suit your needs.
Well, and some of my sense in interacting with members and with the affiliated attorneys is for certain attorneys and law firms, that's a situation that they only get called when somebody has a pending legal matter. Mm-hmm. And some of them have to really prioritize their time such that if you don't have legal work they can do for you, they really need to get back to the case that they are fighting. And so it is a very unusual set of circumstances for someone to go into a law firm without having a legal problem that they can solve, because they're problem solvers. That's what they do. Well, Marty, it's always interesting to look back at our work in the year done past, because I think we always learn something. Every case teaches us something, and that's one of the great joys of what we're doing. But also, as we look forward to 2024, who knows what challenges lie out there. I know that we approach them with enthusiasm. We continue to give member education to maybe make things go a little more smoothly for them. But any thoughts for us as we go bravely forward to 2024?
No.
Well, thank you for listening to us. Thank you for being our members. And there's a whole lot more at our front page article where we review 2023.
And even if you're not a member, feel free to check us out. And there'll be a link down below. I think that's what they always say.
Yeah.
Click on the e-journal. There is 15 years worth of educational material free to you if you just want to explore it.
Very good. Thanks for the shout out. We work hard on those.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone.